Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today I'm going to be attempting to do my first tier ranking list. I'm working on trying to learn how to record, of course, everything on the screen. It's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I'm super excited about it. I'm going to be ranking every season series of Doctor Who from season 1 of Classic Who through Flux. And I've got several different tiers. I've added a couple to the one that was originally set. We have, of course, the GOAT tier. There will be two in that because there are two that I can't pick between as the GOATs. And then, of course, S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D, E, and F. C, of course, will be the average. So if something ends up in C, that means it's average. It's fine. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's fine. Just like on a 1 to 10 scale, 5 would be average, not 7, 5. So this is going to go with C being average. Everything above C is above average. Everything below C is below average. And of course, like I said, there'll be two that end up in GOAT. So we're going to start with season 1. I'm going to put season 1 in A tier for now. I like season 1 a lot. It's a good start. The Daleks does drag a bit. Unearthly Child isn't quite as good as it could be. The first episode's good. The other 3 episodes are fine. They're not bad, but they're not as good as the first episode. Edge of Destruction has a good ending, but doesn't do much for me. Marco Polo is missing. Keys of Marinus is good. Reign of Terror is good. Sensorites is fine. Aztecs is a little overrated. Like, I really need a category between A and B. It's really hard to decide whether this goes in A or B. Since it is the first one and they're still working some kinks out, I'm going to go with A. I do think it's a really good season. Season 2, boom, S tier. I love season 2. My favorite Hartnell season and one of the 2 best seasons of the 60s. I love this one. I love the fact it's mostly intact. I think everything going on here is really, really good. A couple weak stories in the Crusade and the Web Planet, but that's about it. I like Dalek Invasion of Earth. I love the Planet of the Giants, very underrated. I love the Rescue. I love the Romans. I love the Time Meddler. There's a lot of good stuff going on in season 2, and you really feel the show coming together. And plus, Susan leaves. I'm not a big fan of Susan, and Vicky comes in, and I absolutely love Vicky. Vicky is everything Susan should have been. So you also have a good TARDIS team here. I really like season 2. Season 3 for me, just gonna put season 3 in average, honestly. I haven't seen all of it. So much of it is missing. I like Galaxy 4. Mission to the Unknown is fine. Not a big fan of the gunfighters. Really like the war machines. Really like the Ark. But I haven't seen all of it. The Toy Maker is fine. I enjoyed it well enough, especially episode 4. Just gonna put it in average for now, just because I need to see. There's like 3 stories in it I haven't seen. So just for now, I'm going to put it in C, even though I like some of the stuff going on in it. It's one of those I kind of need a tier between B and C because it almost edges into B. But I'm going to put it in C for now. Season 4, boom, S tier. I love season 4. My favorite season of the 60s. I love Troughton. He's my second favorite Doctor. It's easily my favorite season of his, obviously. Good TARDIS team. I really love Power of the Daleks. And the animations in this season are really good. I love Power of the Daleks. I've read The Smugglers and enjoyed it. 10th Planet is fine. I love the Macroterra. I love Evil of the Daleks. I like the Faceless ones. I love the Moon Base. It has 2 of the best Dalek stories ever made in it. It's got 2 good Cybermen stories in it. So it's a really good season. I absolutely love season 4 and feel perfectly justified putting it in season 4 or in S tier. It's definitely S tier. Season 5 is going to be A tier for me. It's still really good. It's Troughton. I love Troughton. Good TARDIS team here. I'm not the biggest fan of Victoria like some people are. She does come across as someone who really just doesn't want to be there sometimes, which she kind of got thrust into the position. Also, the season kind of adopts a Monster of the Week formula. It gets very formulaic, but it's still got good episodes. I mean, you have Web of Fear, you have Tomb, Fury from the Deep. While I don't like the animation, it's a great story. I still haven't seen Will in Space. I need to do that. But it's a good season, even if it does kind of have the Ice Warriors dragging it down. Enemy of the World's a little overrated. But solid A tier. Season 6. I want to put season 6 in S, but I can really only put it in A. It's close. It's like knocking on the door of S. It would be like right here. We're going to put it right here, though. The Space Pirates kind of drags just because of the recon. The recon is hard to get through due to lack of telesnaps. The novelization of the Space Pirates is a good read, though. And the Dominators really isn't that good. I try to make excuses for it sometimes because Troughton is great in it, Fraser's great in it, Wendy's great in it, but it does drag. Mine Robber's good, though. The Invasion is good. The Crotons is very underrated. Seas of Death is just okay to me. Like, it's edging into good without being really good. And then the War Games is fantastic. So it's a solid A tier. Season 7, boom, S tier. Gotta be. It's a great way to soft reboot a show, introduce a new Doctor, introduce color to Doctor Who, introduce a new decade to Doctor Who, and introduce the new format of the show to Doctor Who. This executes all that well while bringing in a brand new villain that's very iconic. I love the Autons. It's got so much going on for it. So I really like Spearhead from Space. Silurians is maybe an episode too long, but it's still really good. Ambassadors of Death is overly long, but I still enjoy the story itself a lot. And of course, Inferno is just one of my favorite Doctor Who stories of all time. It's my favorite Pertwee story. It's one of the top 10 best Doctor Who stories ever made, probably. I love Inferno. So, boom, S tier, gotta be. Season 8. Solid A tier, knocking on the door to S tier. I love Roger Delgado's Master. He's my favorite Master. Terror of the Autons, good. Mind of Evil, really good. I love Mind of Evil, my favorite of the season. Claws of Axos, I think, is the weakest of the Pertwee era, but still a nice watch. I still enjoy it. Still good Doctor Who. Colony in Space, Pertwee's most underrated story. It actually fills out its 6 parts well. The stuff in the city does drag a little bit, but it's fine. And then that nice moment we have between the Doctor and the Master in the city is really good. And the Daemons, while I find a little overrated and the ending a bit Deus Ex Machina, I think it is really good overall, and I love the location work in it, and it fills out its 5 parts really well. Season 9, boom, I'm still sticking in A tier. I like Season 9. Day of the Daleks is one of my favorite Dalek stories, especially the special edition with the updated special effects. That is fantastic. Curse of Peladon is nice. I enjoy it well enough. Sea Devils is good. I fluctuate on it a little bit, but I do like it. And then we have the Mutants, which I've only seen the one time, but I found it underrated. I'm not sure how it'll hold up on rewatch. And the Time Monster, which I also find underrated. And the restoration on the box set on those last 2 looked really good. It was a great restoration work on those. So I feel solid putting it, excuse me, in A tier. Season 10, boom, got to go right back up to S tier. Got to with Season 10. Season 7 and 10 flip-flop back and forth on which one is the best Pertwee to me. It's got the 3 Doctors, which is my favorite multi-Doctor story. I absolutely love the 3 Doctors. Troughton steals the show. Carnival of Monsters, which could be the most essential classic Doctor Who story that modern Who fans would skip over. Because a lot of times I think people who started with Modern Who, when they go back to Classic Who, they just kind of catch the cliff notes of Classic Who, the popular stories they hear about. And this one is one that it might not come up in conversations, but you need to see it. It's really good. This could be the most underrated, essential, need to see story in classic Doctor Who, because it's Bob Holmes and it's a great story. You should really see it. And then of course we have what's the name of it? Frontier in Space, which is good with a rushed ending. Planet of the Daleks, which is the weak link of the season, but is still fine. And then The Green Death, which is essential Doctor Who and one of the best companion departures. Now, Season 11, that's a little harder. Okay, I'm going to put it in A. It's solid A, knocking on the door to S. It's a great introduction to Sarah Jane, and I love 3 and Sarah Jane together. They get on really well. The Time Warrior is fantastic, best of the season. It's Bob Holmes. It's a great introduction to Sarah Jane, a great introduction to the Suntarans. and a wonderful trip into the past for the third Doctor, his only historical. I enjoyed Death to the Daleks a lot, a very underrated Dalek story. Invasion of the Dinosaurs is good. Patty Russell, director Patty Russell, knocking it out of the park with that one. Monsters of Peladon is fine, and honestly, I think Sarah Jane gets really good character development in it, better than almost any story I think she's in. I love how well she's written in Monsters of Peladon. I like the actor playing the engineer in it, who's also in the Space Pirates, and the actress playing the Queen in it is really good as well. It's a nice sequel to Curse of Peladon. Planet of the Spiders is a little underwhelming, but I still enjoy it. Season 12. Oh, got to go up into the GOAT. It is one of the GOAT seasons. I love season 12. It is one of my two favorite seasons of Doctor Who. When I ranked all of Doctor Who by season, it was number one. I love Robot. It is my favorite post regeneration story. I'm not saying it's objectively the best, but it is my personal favorite. I absolutely love it. I have a lot of sentimental attachment to Robot. Such a good episode. The Ark in Space is a stone cold classic. It is so good. It is one of the first Doctor Who stories I have memory of watching. My first Doctor Who story, I'm pretty convinced, was either Inferno or The Ark in Space. Those are the two I have earliest memories of. And The Ark in Space is the very first Doctor Who episode I ever bought on DVD. And I never owned any VHSs, so it's also the first Doctor Who episode I ever owned, with Inferno being the second. I really enjoyed the Sontaran experiment. It's a great two-parter that knows it only needs to be a two-parter, and it has some good location work. It has Genesis in it. Genesis is a classic. I don't have to explain that. It's just Genesis, and I love Genesis. And then it has Revenge of the Cybermen, which is probably the most underrated story in classic Doctor Who. It is such a good story. Yes, it has a plot hole the size of a exhaust port, with the fact the Vogons can't defeat the Cybermen when they're on the planet that's known for being the weakness of the Cybermen. The Cybermen are trying to blow us up because it's a planet of gold and that's their weakness. Well, we have to fight them. What should we use? I don't know. Let's just shoot at them. It's a bit of a plot hole, but other than that, it's a really good story. And the location work for Revenge of the Cybermen is really good. I actually think that most of you, even if you don't think that it's a good story. I think most of you would agree that the location shooting for season 12 in the caves does look really nice, because in probably the only time ever in Classic Who they actually had a little bit of budget at the end of the season, so they were able to do a little extra location work for that, which is nice. And then we got season 13. Boom, it's the other GOAT season. Objectively, the best season the show has ever done. I absolutely love season 13. It is just classic after classic after classic after classic. Anybody who's a Doctor Who fan needs to see season 13. You have Terror of the Zygons, a classic Planet of Evil, which is phenomenal. I think the only reason a lot of people don't remember Planet of Evil is because it's in this season. Like, if it was in other seasons, it would be the story of the season. You have Android Invasion, which is the weakest of the season, but it's still great. Not just good, not just very good, but great. It is great. Very great. Because season 13 has no bad stories. It has no just decent stories, no just good stories. Every story in it is at least very, very great. Brain of Morbius, classic, love it. Pyramids of Mars, one of the greatest Doctor Who episodes ever made, and The Seeds of Doom, also one of the greatest Doctor Who episodes ever made. Pyramids of Mars, also being directed by Patty Russell, Doctor Who's first female director. Season 14 is going to get a solid. It's a Tom Baker season. I can't really rank them that low. Tom Baker's going to get a solid A for me. Mask of Mandragora is underrated. Hand of Fear, I'm not as keen on. I don't go back to that one. The first three episodes are pretty good. It falls apart a bit in episode 4 before getting some of that back with the wonderful goodbye scene, but it's not one I go back to revisit. Deadly Assassin is one of the two most overrated stories in all of Doctor Who, while still being good. Face of Evil is very underrated and a great introduction for Leela. Robots of Death is the other most overrated story in all of classic Doctor Who. They're both in the same season. While still having great production design, is why I enjoy the story. I love the design of the robots, and I love the set design for the ship. The actual story doesn't do really anything for me. And then, of course, it has Talons of Wing Chiang, which is just a stone cold classic, one of the best Doctor Who stories ever made. And then we come to season 15. Gonna put it in B, actually. Gonna put it in a solid B. It has Horror of Fang Rock, which is phenomenal. But it also has Invisible Enemy, which doesn't really do much for me. It's decent enough, but doesn't do a lot for me. Image of the Findall, which never quite lives up to what it should. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's because Anthony Reed had taken over as script editor. Image of the Findall is good. I like the story on paper, but just for some reason it doesn't completely come together for me. The best episodes are the first and the last episode. The middle episodes are kind of middling. Fair enough, I guess. The Sunmakers is really good. I do enjoy the Sunmakers a lot. Underworld is underrated with some fantastic model work, some of the best in classic Doctor Who, overshadowed by some really bad CSO, sadly. With a story that I enjoy, and then the Invasion of Time is just doesn't do much for me. The budget obviously ran out, so there's two stories in there that really pull it down for me. So B is the best I can give it. Season 16, I gotta put it in A, even though it has Power of Kroll in it, which kind of pulls it down. It also has Ribos Operation, which I like. It has Pirate Planet, which I like. I love both of those. They're two of my favorite. I'm not going to say there's any classics in this episode necessarily, but those are two of my favorite Tom Baker stories. Stones of Blood is really good, especially once they get into hyperspace. I'm an oddball on that one. I know most people prefer it when it's on Earth, and then they think it kind of falls apart in the second half a little or goes down a little. I'm the opposite. The stuff on Earth is fine and cool, but I love when they get into hyperspace and the Doctor's got his wig on, and I love the little aliens that don't look humanoid at all. Also, I do love the scene when the ogre creature, the ogre, kills the campers. That's pretty graphic and cool. And then Androids of Tara is got to be the classic Doctor Who story that my opinion just flip flops on depending from watch, like more than any other one, I think. It just depends on my most recent watch through how I feel about that one, but typically I enjoy it well enough. Power of Kroll, and then the Armageddon Factor is a flawed but underrated season finale. Season 17, boom, right back up into S tier. I love season 17. Its quirky style of wit and humor that Douglas Adams brings to season 17 as script editor is right up my alley, and I absolutely love it. Destiny of the Daleks might not have the pedigree of Genesis, but it has a fun rewatchability I like. This season has City of Death, which is my favorite Doctor Who story of all time, with some beautiful location work in Paris. Creature from the Pit is a massively underrated story with one of Tom Baker's best scenes in the entire show. You guys know the one I'm talking about. Nightmare of Eden is kind of the weakest one of the season, but it's still fine, especially with the updated effects. I have never watched it with the original effects, to be fair, but with the updated effects, it looks really good and is fine. Horns of Nimon, I love. It's just silly, campy, panto fun, and if you approach it with that frame of mind, it's a lot of fun. And then Shada is great. I love Shada. I love the animation for Shada. It never feels jarring going from live action to animation, and I enjoy the story itself, and the location work looks fantastic. Very deserving of S tier from me. Season 18, I flip flop on 18 depending. I'm going to go with B. It's almost knocking on A, and if you ask me on another day, it would probably be an A. Keep in mind, C is average. C is average. I love classic Doctor Who. So it's still above average. Leisure Hive doesn't do much for me. It is the weakest, I think, for me personally. I do like Megaloss. I find it very underrated. I wish it was an episode or two longer because the ending's a bit abrupt, but I like it more than most. Full Circle is another one like Androids of Tara. It depends on my watch through how I feel about it, but I'm a little kinder towards it fresh off a watch through. Uh, State of Decay is very good. It's the masterpiece of the season. I enjoyed that one a lot, actually. Very, very good Doctor Who. One of the best stories probably to come out in the 80s, to be honest. I love State of Decay. Warrior's Gate is a fantastic story that can be a little confusing, but it's good, and it's executed very well on screen. I love the visual representation of the story on screen. Keeper of Traken is very good. I like it a lot. And Logopolis is a bit underwhelming, but is fine. So I feel solid putting it there. Now for season 19. Ooh, this gets a little tricky. Season 19. I'm going to say B tier. I like Castrovalva. It is my favorite Davison story. I like Board of Doomsday. I like The Visitation a lot as well. Earthshock is good. Time Flight is underrated. I've only seen it the one time. I need to rewatch it. I found it a little underrated. But it also has Kenda, which I don't really care for, although the back half is better than the front half, but I don't really care for it. And it also has Black Orchid, which I don't really care for. It's watchable. The location work is good, but I don't really care for it either. And then, of course, just Davison's Doctor doesn't do a lot for me. He's fine, but he is kind of one of the lower tier doctors for me. And while I like Nissa and Tegan, I don't really care much for Adric with Davison. So while it's close to knocking on the door to A, I think overall I have to put it in B for season 19. Season 20. Ooh, that's tough because I like season 20. But a lot of the stories don't really wow me. It's a good season. I think it's a solid A. Arc of Infinity is underrated. I really like it. I know it doesn't have the best reputation. If you've never seen it with the updated effects, because it did have updated effects on the DVD release, which have been carried over to the season 20 box set, I recommend watching it with those updated effects. I do think they help it. Plus, it has some wonderful location work as well in Amsterdam. Snake Dance is nice. It is a fantastic sequel to Kenda. Much better than Kenda. I will never understand how anyone can like Kenda more than Snake Dance. I don't get it. I think Kenda is not that great, whereas Snake Dance, I think, is pretty good, actually. I like it. Maldron Undead is good without being great. Terminus, I tend to, much like Horns of Nymon, repeat viewings have really made me like it more. It's a bit forgettable. It is a bit forgettable. But it is a nice story. And I think the updated effects help it a lot as well. It's fine. It's fine. Enlightenment is really good. I like Enlightenment a lot. King's Demons is very underrated. My favorite of the Davisons two-parter. Davison's two-parters is my favorite one of them. I actually think it's a very underrated story. And then, of course, Five Doctors is fantastic. Probably my second favorite multi-doctor story. It's a lot of fun with some very beautiful location work as well, in the sense that where they shot it was fine, but the fact it is the surviving film elements, so it looks really, really good. Solid A. Season 21. Gonna have to go C. Because it has really good stuff, really bad stuff. You have really bad stories bookending it, with Warriors of the Deep being terrible. I keep telling myself I need to rewatch it, but I also keep telling myself I'm not rewatching it until the box set comes out. I have it on DVD, but I'm not rewatching it till the box set comes out. Twin Dilemma I like a little more than most. It does a couple things I like, but it's still pretty bad, especially its portrayal of the Sixth Doctor. That can just leave a bad taste in your mouth. The Awakening isn't really that great. Part 1 is fine. Part 2 doesn't do much for me. Of course, we have Caves, which is phenomenally good. Bob Holmes doing what Bob Holmes does, knocking it out of the park. One of the best regeneration stories. You also have Resurrection of the Daleks, which is really good. Needs updated effects, but is really, really good. And then we have Frontios, which is also really good. I'm not a big fan of the Tractators, but I like the story as a whole. And is that all of them in there? I can't remember if I forgot one or not. But yeah, just overall, really strong stories and really bad stories with just a couple in the middle. I think season 21 is a solid C. Season 22, we're jumping right back up to S tier. Season 22 is definitely S tier. Colin is better in the role here. I'm not a big fan of Perry, but she's fine. Nothing on Nicola. I'm just not a big fan of Perry. But the stories are really good. I like every story this season. There's no bad stories in season 22 for me. I like Attack of the Cybermen. I think it's good. It's a bit lore heavy, but it's good. I like Vengeance on Varos, and I like its political and social commentary. I really like the Two Doctors a lot. It's long, and the Suntaran makeup doesn't really impress me, but it's got one of the best pieces of incidental music in all of Doctor Who with that Suntaran theme. That's amazing. Hudson did a really great remix of that recently. It's really, really good. And then it's great to see Troughton and Fraser back. They're fantastic in this. We also have Revelation of the Daleks, which is really good. Mark of the Ronnie, which is probably my favorite Colin Baker story. And Kate O'Mara is just fantastic in it. And it's a great historical story. It has a couple naff parts in it, but it's really good. Plus, it also has some good incidental music. And then we have Time Lash, which is better than it's given credit. I think part of that's the updated effects. The updated effects really help Time Lash. I've never watched Time Lash all the way through with the original effects because the first time I ever saw Time Lash was on when the box set came in, and I thought it looked really good with the updated effects. They really help it. Although the bit when he's in the Time Lash still goes on way too long. And Paul Darrow's great in it. I love watching Paul Darrow in this one. So I feel like every story is good. Definitely S tier Doctor Who, in my opinion. Wow, I have 22 above 14 and 16 and 15 and 8. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me that 22 is beating out some of these. But I like every story in that season. Season 23 gonna be a little under average. It's the weakest of classic Who for me, a little below average. It's not bad. I don't mind. And like I said, this is just a little below average. This isn't for me. E and F's are when you're getting into the bad territory. It's just a little below average for me. I actually really like the Mysterious Planet. Most of y'all know that. It also has good incidental music. Plus, I just love Glitz and Dibber. I love me some Glitz and Dibber. I don't really care for Mind Warped. It's what really hurts it for me. As much as I like Brian Blessed, I don't really like that story. One of my least favorite classic Doctor Who stories. um, Terror of the Vorvoids is good, especially the trialless version. I think it's good. And Ultimate Foe is okay. It's fine. It's a nice ending for the story. A little Deus Machina ending, perhaps, but I like it well enough, especially part one. It's just, it feels a little below average. Season 24, going to go straight up into C. And the reason it's not any higher is flat out Delta and the Bannerman holding it back. Delta and the Bannerman is bad. It is really bad. It is one of the worst classic Doctor Who episodes. That's what's holding it down. Time in the Ronnie is fine, especially when you know all the production behind the scenes issues with it. It's fine. I enjoy it well enough. I like Paradise Towers. Even though I've only watched it the one time, I really do need to rewatch it, especially with the original incidental music. I'm curious to see how that goes. But I liked it. I thought it was good. And you guys know I like Dragonfire a lot. So two solid stories, or two good stories, one fine, decent enough story, and then one really bad story. I feel like C is fine for it. Okay. Season 25. I'm going to put season 25 in B. Remembrance of the Daleks is great. I like Silver Nemesis well enough. It's underrated. Remembrance is a little overrated while still being great. I like Happiness Patrol. I think it's really good. Greatest Show in the Galaxy is the weak link for me. But the second half of it's good. The first half of it, I really can't stand. Like episodes 1 and 2, if you saw those reviews, I was an unhappy person. But episodes 3 and 4, those reviews, you notice I come around to it. And it's got a really good ending. And that means a lot to me when your story can stick the landing. It's kind of the opposite of Hand of Fear with 3 good episodes and then it just completely missed the landing. But this one's the opposite. The first half of it I don't care for, but the last half's good, and it sticks the landing with episode 4. So I feel like B is solid for me. It just doesn't quite bump into A tier. It's close, but not quite. Season 26. It's really hard to decide whether season 26 needs to be S tier or A tier, especially as someone who loves the McCoy era. I'm gonna say S tier. I feel more like I should say A tier, but I'm gonna put it in S tier. Battlefield is really good. It's nice to see the Brig in action one last time. Uh, it's got some terrible incidental music, but other than that, it's pretty good. And I love Jean Marsh in this. She's great. I love Ghostlight. I just love Ghostlight. I love Ghostlight. Curse of Fenric is really good. I really enjoy Curse of Fenric. It is the essential McCoy story with Remembrance, both of those. And then Survivor gets a little too much credit, I think, because it is the final story. But the story itself is fine, and it's definitely Anthony Ainley's best performance as the Master. So I feel like S tier is good for it. The TV movie. This is another tricky one. I feel like it needs to go in one of these, but I can't quite decide which one. Gonna put it in B. I like Paul McGann. I like the brief time we get Sylvester McCoy. I think Grace is good as a companion. I actually like Eric Roberts' Master for the most part. I think there's more nuance to how he plays that than most people give credit. Not really a fan of the character of Lee. He's acted well enough, I guess, but I'm just not a big fan of him. Although I do love the fact the Master kind of gets his own companion. That's pretty cool. I like the way it's shot. There's no other piece of Doctor Who that looks the way the TV movie does. I like that kind of 90s style of camera work. It's pretty neat. And the story is fine. It's nothing staggering, but it's fine. It's neat. It's a unique piece of Doctor Who. And again, it gave us McGann, who is just fantastic in the role. Season one, oh, gotta go S tier. Series one of modern Doctor Who is just good. Even compared to classic Doctor Who, it's good. It's solid. I don't think there's any bad stories in it. Christopher Eccleston's a great doctor. Billie Piper is actually really good in her first season as her first series as Rose, and I enjoy the stories, especially the Empty Child Doctor Dances is phenomenally good, and Dalek is quite arguably the best Dalek story ever made. A lot of good stuff here. Series two is definitely average. It's definitely C, because it's got a lot of bad, it's got a lot of good, and they kind of balance each other out almost equally. I think I'm tempted to bump it up to B, but I am going to put it in C. It's not that I think it's just consistently average. It's just I think there's a lot of really good stuff and a lot of really bad stuff. You know, you have Fear Her and Love and Monsters, but then you also have like School Reunion and the Impossible Planet two-parter. So it's a lot of really good and really bad in this season. So I feel that's a good spot for series two. Series three going boom right back up into S tier. Series three is my favorite series of modern Doctor Who. I think it's really, really good. I love Martha as a companion. I think she's really well written. I do enjoy Tennant's Doctor. He's a little too human for me, but I think he's a good doctor. I think Tennant's a good actor. I like the stories in this season. Series three has no bad episodes, and that's impressive. I think that's really impressive. There's no just really bad episodes in it. Um, with the weakest probably either being Smith and Jones or 42, and they're still good. They're still really good episodes. And then, of course, Blink is this episode, the Shakespearean Code is this episode, Gridlock is this episode, and then Utopia is this episode, and they're all freaking practically masterpieces. They're so good. The last two episodes are a little weak, but they're still good. I love Series 3. Um, Series 4 is going to get a solid A from me. I do like Series 4. I find it a little overrated. I love Tennant and Donna together. Donna's one of my favorite companions, not just of Modern Who, but of Doctor Who. I love Donna. Her and David Tennant have such good chemistry, and Donna and the 10th Doctor bounce off each other so well. Tennant is at his peak in this episode, performance-wise, in this season, performance-wise. And there's good stories, including the series finale, which, while being a little over the top, is still good. But it does have a few of them I don't care for as much as some, like say Turn Left, and I'm forgetting there's another one in there I think is overrated. The Suntaran two-parter, while still being good, isn't great, but still good. But it also has the Unicorn and the Wasp, which I absolutely love. That's how you do a filler episode, and Partners in Crime, which is really good. It's a solid A season. Series 5. Gonna go with B for Series 5. It's the best Smith series, and it is really good. Um, yeah, Series 5, I do feel quite confident being in B tier. It's got the 11th hour, but it's also got some stuff like Vincent and the Doctor, which I think is overrated, while still being fine, is a bit overrated. I think Amy's Choice is in that season. The Silurian two-parters in that season, while also still having stuff that I like Victory of the Daleks and The Beast Below. So I feel like B is fine for it. Um, Series 6. I don't really like Series 6. Yeah. Not sure if it goes in E or F. I'm not. It's got some good stuff in it, but I hardly ever go back to it now. I never go back and rewatch it. I probably need to. I just don't. um, I'm gonna put it in F. Actually, it's not complete garbage. I think if I don't think any season of Doctor Who is just complete garbage. There's always some good episodes in them, but I don't know. I really don't like Series 6. Series 7 is hard because it feels like two different series. Like Series 7A and Series 7B feel like different series because you have a different companion, a different Doctor, different TARDIS interior. The Doctor even has a different outfit. So personally, I would prefer to rank these separately because I'm not the biggest fan of Series 7A, whereas I really like Series 7B. Um, I'm gonna have to put it in C and average them out because 7A does have one or two good stories. Well, I like Asylum of the Daleks and I like A Town Called Mercy, I guess. While 7B still has Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, which isn't that great either. And Name of the Doctor really isn't as good as some people remember it being. It has a good beginning and a good ending, but everything in the middle is kind of meh. So it is kind of the epitome of average, I guess, if you actually do the math on it. Series 8. I gotta put it here. I want to put it higher, but it has Kill the Moon and In the Forest of the Night in it, and those are two of the worst episodes of Doctor Who ever made. It also has Listen, which isn't good. It has The Caretaker, which isn't that great. While at the same time being balanced by Flatline and Mummy on the Orient Express, which are both phenomenal stories. I llove Flatline. I love Mummy on the Orient Express. I love Deep Breath a lot. I really like Robots of Sherwood. Whereas even Into the Dalek is fine, but then the finale is kind of weak for it too. The two-part finale. Once again, it's just doing the averages. You have really bad stuff with really good stuff. So much of Doctor Who at this point is a mixed bag. It just kind of rounds out to average. Series 9, I am gonna put it in E. And the only thing keeping it from F is the Under the Lake two-parter and Heaven Sent both being phenomenally good. And Sleep No More being better than its reputation. It's not stellar or anything, but it's better than its reputation. But Heaven Sent being phenomenal and the Underwater, the two-parter, being phenomenally good is keeping it from the bottom. But it's still got all the other two-parters that are just uninteresting and boring. It's just such a slog to get through. The Game of Thrones girl two-parter is not that good. The Zygon two-parter needed to be one episode. It has the great speech, but it's a slog to get through. The Dalek two-parter is literally the weakest Dalek story we've ever gotten. Even though it has some nice moments in it. And I feel like I'm forgetting something in there somewhere. It's just, I want to put it higher, but I just can't. Series 10. It's got to go in average. And I hate doing that to Capaldi because I like Capaldi. But if I'm going to put this in average, I got to put this in average. The Monk trilogy hurts it. I like Extremis well enough. The other two parts hurt it. Eaters of Light is okay, but makes some questionable execution choices in the directing. The pilot also doesn't do a lot for me. It's fine. But then it has Smile, it has Thin Ice, Extremis I actually do enjoy. And then, of course, the finale, the two-part finale is phenomenally good. So while I want to put it here, and I'm very tempted to put it here, really all it can manage is here. Series 11, got to go in F. Now, to be fair to Series 11, there are 3 stories in the season I like. I like Ghost Monument a lot. I like Kerblam a lot. And I like Demons of the Punjab a lot, which really reminds me of our first Doctor Historical. The rest of them I don't really care for. Women Who Fell to Earth I'm a little kinder toward fresh off a rewatch, but for the most part, I think it's just a bad season. I don't really care for Whitaker's Doctor. The companions vary from episode to episode. I don't really care for this season. Series 12. I think Series 12 is pretty good, but it has that awful finale. It kind of goes between C and B for me. I'm going to put it in B as bad as the finale is, which I kind of don't like because I'm putting it above season 24, and I don't know if I buy that, I'll be honest with you. The problem is that the finale is garbage. Timeless Children is garbage, and it kind of hurts Ascension of the Cybermen by association. And Praxius is kind of not that great. I can't remember if Orphan 55 is this season or last season. But it has Spyfall, which is great. It has the Tesla episode, which is fantastic. Uh, the Haunting of Villa Diodati, and Can You Hear Me? So yeah, it's a solid B tier. It's a mix, but the mix basically bumps it slightly above average to me. Um, it's really close between these two, but I'm just gonna bump it up barely into B. And then you have Flux, which also goes here. It's just a height of mediocrity. And I don't mean average because it's not average; it's mediocrity. There are two episodes of Flux that would have been really good as two-parters or as single stories. A Village of the Angels and the War of the Suntarans would have been great as standalone episodes. They would have been great as standalone episodes. Tying everything in with Flux, though, doesn't work. That's the problem, is this feels like one really long episode or miniseries, much like Trial of the Time Lord, which also didn't work. That does not work for Doctor Who. The only time that's really worked, I think, is with Key to Time, which works because the episodes are only loosely connected, so they feel like separate episodes. Even though I still consider Trial separate episodes, it's still really, it doesn't even consider itself separate episodes since it's told as 14 parts and suffers for it. Flux also suffers for that, even though they're labeled with individual episodes. It feels like one all overarching story that doesn't come together properly. So I do feel like these are the weakest 3 seasons of Doctor Who, with most of Classic Who being the strongest. So the GOATs, we have 12 and 13. A lot of S tier seasons here, though. Season 2, 4, 7, 10, 17, 22, 26, Series 1 and Series 3 all being S tier. A lot of A tier seasons right here, the most being A tier seasons, with only one of modern Doctor Who sneaking into that. But hey, we got a couple seasons in B. Look at Whitaker even easing up into B there. Here's the average, and then we have the below average with only one season of classic Doctor Who being in below average, even, and it's not by a lot, with 4 series of modern Doctor Who kind of being rough. So I want to know what you think of my tier ranking list and what you think of me doing a tier ranking list. Feel free to comment down below and let me know your thoughts on that. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and like to support what I do, there's a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. Link to my PO or a link to my Amazon wish list is also down there. My PO box is down there as well if you'd like to check that out. Anything you want to send me to look at and review. And most importantly, thank you for watching.